Alright guys, we got a customer's order here. We got a whole bunch of really awesome cards. This particular card I am obsessed with. I just love the absolute colors. We're going to fix up all these cards. We're going to do whatever it takes to get them ready for grading. And let's always start with a good scrubbing. You'd be surprised what a good scrubbing will do. You can even see the color just slightly pop more, even just from giving it a nice little scrub dub. Front and back, we got to make sure everything's nice and clean, make sure there's no dust. Now this particular card had a little bit of edge work that needed to be worked on, but we'll come back to that later. There was also a line on the bottom left corner that was dented into the card, but we're going to soften it a little bit in the humidifier, and we will revisit this later in this video, but also in a separate video because it took a little bit extra work. Next card. Okay, now we're going to start with a cleaning on this one, same as always. There was a couple little lines on this one and some edge work that needed to get fixed, some little lifted edges. So let's start with a cleaning. Yeah, this particular one I wanted to look under magnification just a little bit closer. There were some little spots that I needed to get. Now for this particular job, when it comes to just lifted edges, rounded off edges, we're gonna do some spot humidity with a straw. It's called the straw trick. We're gonna blow humid air on that section a couple times, you know, kind of feel it out. Sometimes you do a little less than you want, or heavy if you think it's really bad, and then put a little piece of vinyl over the top, use some tool work it out. And in certain areas you'll see where I take the vinyl off and I'm pushing up against the corner. I'm kind of shaping the corner because sometimes it's got like a little chip or it's got dents on the end, and I'm just kind of giving it a more tight rounded edge with the tool there. And as you can see, I'm going to go around the majority of the corners and the edges, because sometimes a customer will say, hey, we got a card for you. We want you to just do a full restore, whatever it needs to do to be ready, and then I'll just take a look at it, whatever has to be fixed. Bada bing, bada boom. Always starts with the cleaning. The second thing I look at is the edges. And then after the cleaning and the edges are done, I'll usually look at the hologram, but I don't like to do any sort of polish or scratch removal on a lot of the textured cards because you just risk the card having material stuck in those ridges. So unless it's an emergency, I try not to do that. This card just needed a few edges, a nice cleaning. Bada bing, bada boom, came out perfect. Okay, here we got another card that had a little bit of edge wear. And it was kind of funny, we thought there was two little dings on the top right wing of it, but it was actually just the design in the card. It's funny, I kind of spent a decent amount of time trying to figure out why that little ding wasn't coming out, and then I did some research, and yeah, that was kind of on me on that one. Gotta be careful though when you're spraying the cards, because if you spray too close to the edge will puff up, and if you don't know how to take care of that and handle it, you know, it could kind of freak you out and the card may not dry appropriately. This particular one had a couple tiny little dings, some little edges. I thought it would be nice to soften it up a little bit in the humidor just for a tiny bit of time, and then come back and just roll the edges. Okay, Mewtwo GX here. Start with the cleaning, as always. You can already, every time you see the cleaning, look at the before and after just within a second. You'll see just a tiny bit more color come out. This one had a couple little dirt spots, came out nice and easy. Okay, now here's another trick. When you've got tiny little areas that have marks, dings, lines, and you really just need to work on one area, put a little droplet of your solution and let it sit until the card puffs up a little bit, and then you got to work on it. But if you do it this way, I like to kind of massage the area with a soft tip tool, and then I can kind of just stop when it's just a tiny bit soft. That's how I like to do it. Although it's a little tricky with the Japanese cards because it's plastic kind of on both sides. It's a lot more difficult than just vintage cards. And once the area is soft enough, you can just roll it out. This one I think came out fairly easily. Sometimes it takes multiple passes. Certain marks like this could take a week of going back and forth over and over and over and over again. Just depends on how stubborn the card is and how horrible the damage is. But we're going back and forth with the roller. You gotta be careful with those rollers. A lot of people get dings and lines from them because the stones are not completely smooth, or a little speck gets on it and you're rolling it into the card. just touched up a couple little things, a couple little pieces of dust got on there. And I think that one is good to go. We're just gonna pack it up. Bada bing, bada boom. Next card. We got a whole bunch of really cool ones. Okay, tag team. Love. Pretty much every tag team card is pretty sweet. This one was pretty straightforward, so a couple little spots. Took them off very easily. Back to the cleaning. Some cards need more than others, some cards don't. You just gotta have that restraint to not overdo it and try and perfect every little thing that doesn't need to be perfected. I like to always check them under the magnification. This magnifier is actually surprisingly strong. It also has a 30x magnifier on it too. So we're gonna do some spot edges. I think this one had a couple little white nicks. I was trying to roll them over, didn't come out. White spots are almost impossible to fix. Actually, they pretty much are impossible to fix. Sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll try and roll the edge and you'll make it a little less visible. Fresh piece of vinyl. Trying to roll off some of the white on the edges. No luck. Sometimes you get lucky. But this one did have a bunch of lifted edges as well. Touched those up. There was a couple little nicks in the edge. Kind of tapered them back in with the tool. Tightened up the edge. Bada bing, bada boom. Now this card is a perfect example of one that I would like to, even though the hologram on this one did not have any scratches, you can see just from cleaning it, you can see the blacks pop just a little bit more, which is great. You could definitely see it. And this is one that I would polish. I wouldn't do scratch removal because there's no scratches to be removed, but a nice little polish at the end of this brought it out really nicely. That's why I like this magnification tool too. I have one of the electronic ones with a screen that I use as well, but gonna fix some of the lifted corners as well. Most of the cards that came in were pretty clean. And you know, it's just taking it that extra 15%, 5% is what really makes the difference. You can have a card perfectly clean with one little lifted edge, tiny ding. Those are the things that'll stop you. I don't like to polish the entire card like some people do online. I think it's just dangerous. You know, if you don't take all this material off, you could risk your card getting altered, graded as altered. So I only really do it on the hologram unless it's like an emergency and the card is just super dull. That was another easy fix. Little tiny fixes here, little edge, little polish, little cleaning. Boom, absolutely love this card. Is this one of the best Pikachu cards that was ever made? I'm on that bandwagon. Some people are hit or miss. Some people don't like it. Some people will think it's the greatest card ever. I think it's gotta be one of the top Pikachu cards that, as far as like a nice looking artwork goes, not on rarity. Back to the cleaning. This one was very clean from what I remember. See, I did a nice check through. The card was already pretty much spotless. It had a weird line going down the side of the card. You could see on the top edge there was a line dented into the card. So I did some spot humidity with the straw, and it came out pretty much right away. Did a little bit of edge work, flattened some edges, little lifted edges it had, make it nice and crisp. Fixing another edge here. I like to use that tool with the tubing on the end because it kind of presses flat, but it doesn't push super flat and hard like the bone tool does. So it kind of flexes around the edge of the card. So I like to finalize flattening it with that usually. You just roll it along the edge, nice. And it was funny, on the back of the card, the line that we thought was a dent was actually part of the shadow from the card, but it did also have a tiny dent in there as well, so it was kind of an illusion. But that was a nice clean one. That one came out beautiful. Right as I was about to pack it up, I noticed another little tiny thing on the edge. Quick little fix. It's these little details that make the big difference, especially when you're trying to go for a 10. Whenever I do work on customers' cards, I always take notes too of the unrepairable damage. Okay, checking back into the humidor. Wipe off a little bit of the excess humidity. And we're gonna start rolling that crease out. It was like a long dent in that corner. Took quite a bit of work, actually. Kind of went back and forth many times, past even beyond this video, which, like I said, I'm going to be doing another video specifically on just this card for those interested in just seeing that process. So there was a dent in there and it was kind of deep, so I used the dental tool to kind of push away at the insides of the dent to kind of smooth it out so it's not such a rigid thing. And then I kind of just increase the size of the tool slowly, and it kind of creates a softer valley. And then when you have that, it's a lot easier to humidify the card and open up that section when it's not so rigid. So I'll put it back in and I'll let it soften itself out and come back out.